Hey, what's going on? Your old buddies back in business. This is the Leafs Convo. Norm in London, Ontario. Mike in Cheektowaga, New York. Jeff Curry's here. 09 Max. The Maple Leafs 6-3-1 in their past 10 games. 9 to go before the start of the second season, Mr. Augello. It's been a bumpy ride for the Maple brothers, but every time they leave you wanting more, they provide more the next night. I think it's going to be much of the same until they complete this regular season schedule. And then it's dropped the puck with those bastards from Tampa Bay. And considering the way the Lightning are playing right now, you got to think that the advantage is beginning to tick a little bit more in the Leafs' favor. What say you? Good evening, sir. Monday Night Convo.
Good evening, Norm. Well, I'll take the title of a old King Crimson song as the description of the Toronto Maple Leafs. 21st century schizoid men, because that's what they are. This 5-game road trip, 3 wins, the shootout in Ottawa, nice game, a good performance in Florida, 6-2. And then last night, the 3-2 win over Nashville, which I think was sort of misrepresentative in terms of how much the Leafs dominated. But of course, they let the Predators back into the game, and it was close down the stretch. The 2 losses were abysmal. The 7-2 thumping at the hands of the Islanders, who will maybe barely make it into the playoffs because they have a goaltender who can stop a puck, and the game in Carolina, which they give up 15 shots in the first 11 minutes, fall behind 2-0, crawl their way back 2-2 in the third period, allow I can't blame Matt Murray for the guy. He stops the puck, it's on the goal line, and the guy spears at it and pushes over the line. But then the Leafs tie it on a goal that was sort of disputed, 3-3, and they hold on to the tie for a grand total of 34 seconds. That has been an ongoing problem with this team. They give up a goal, and then they give up the counter goal less than a minute later, and it's just so deflating for not only the team but for the fans. It's like you think that they have a chance to get a point out of this game, and they don't. But the grand scheme of this is these games are meaningless.
Right.
I mean, they're 7 points up now with a game in hand with 2.5 weeks left to go in the regular season. If they don't get home ice advantage, it's one of the biggest choke jobs and one of the biggest disappointments in recent memory. They have to just get through the next 2.5 weeks healthy. And that's the most important thing. They're going to get Brian O'Reilly back. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But they need to get in, of course, Matthews gets hit in the nuts. Everybody thinks it's like a stomach muscle injury. Tavares gets cross-checked last night. He goes to the locker room. There are situations here where this team, you get scared of the fact that their big players are going to get hurt, and they don't, but they've got time before the playoffs, so they just have to put everybody in bubble wrap and get through it.
This is the Convo, Norm, along with Mike. I don't want to get into too many comments tonight, not feeling the greatest. So we're just going to get through the breakdown, make up for the Sunday less than spectacular, because we did not do one. That kind of ended our streak, Mike. We had an Iron Man thing going for YouTube podcasts. It ended, but we're back the next day because even on the mend, we're committed to doing something for the OGs and converts. Commander Brantford, Mike, is the first person I've heard who called the Carolina loss abysmal. Everyone said they deserved to win and played well.
Oh. Well, I mean, Sheldon Keefe said that they played well, but this is the thing. Okay, yeah, you played well.
Here's your participation trophy. We love you, Commander Brantford. You know what we're saying, though, bud. Like, big whoop. You didn't win. Move on.
You played well. Austin Matthews had 15 shots on goal. You lost. That's the most important thing. You lost. You found a way in a game that you dominated for 45 minutes, a way to lose. And that's just like, okay, one thing, a coach has got to find the positive even in the negative. So I understand why Sheldon Keefe was saying, well, it was a great performance. But you lost. I don't think there are very few
Right.
games that you lose that you performed great in. Now, Kochetkov, he played really well. He's a good young goaltender. And Matt Murray, I know that Sheldon Keefe said, well, Matt Murray, even though he played well, has got to keep it under 4 goals.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, but I think at least 3 of those goals weren't on him.
Right.
But in the grand scheme of things, when you get to the playoffs, you need the goaltender to make the save, and he didn't make the save that they needed him to make.
Well, here's the thing about that guy. It seems like it's a one and done, especially with Mr. Joseph Wall coming on pretty strong. I'm sure we'll be talking about him for some time to come over the next couple of weeks leading up to the regular season and then beyond. Joseph Wall might be one of those guys, Mike, kind of a homegrown dude who's faced a lot of struggle with injury, stop starts, COVID, in and out. And then, once the shackles are off and this guy is feeling good and he knows that the dudes in front of him are there to support him. Unlike goaltenders the Leafs have had in the past where they've been hung out to dry, this could be Joseph Wall's time or world, and we may be all just living in it and certainly witnessing something on the horizon, and I'm looking forward to that. But Mike, I just wanted to throw something about the Carolina game. The Leafs had beat the Hurricanes like a week and a half ago. So these are similarly built teams. They don't play with a hell of a lot of physical bravado, and it was what it was in that circumstance. Tampa Bay is ramping up with some of the move it made before the deadline, and then some of those guys they've got who've been to Cup finals and who have lots of tenure and who are basically playing with not a hell of a lot to lose in guys like Perry and Maroon. Tampa has not looked that great. They've lost 4 in a row. They were shitty for a good part of a month and kind of got back on track, but they don't look great. And one of the reasons why the Leafs are in a position to secure a home ice position, in the first round is because Tampa's kind of blown chunks of late. And I know that you think that the slate will be clean and it'll be like Tampa of old. But do you think that if the Leafs don't fall into Tampa's trap, try to stay away from the shenanigans, push back when they can, but play this game mano a mano, talent to talent, that the Leafs may actually finally have a chance to get this done? Forget about how great they played against Carolina. Let's talk about game 1 of the playoffs in Toronto.
Toronto has to assume that the Tampa that they face is the Tampa that won 2 Stanley Cups and got to a Stanley Cup final last year.
Right.
The Tampa that they played in the first round was not the Tampa of old for the first 5.5 games. Game 6 and Game 7, they turned it on. They won in overtime, and then Vasilevsky became Vasilevsky at the right time, and they win 2-1 in Game 7. The Leafs are better than they were last year. They're a stronger team. But that doesn't mean that Tampa can't turn it on. I mean, like I said, I assume going into the playoffs that Tampa is going to turn it on like a light switch.
Right.
And if the Leafs are true to themselves, they have to assume the same thing. They can't say, "Oh, they're playing like crap." No, you're being lulled into a false sense of security.
Right.
We had Greg Wyshynski on Off the Post yesterday, and he was talking about, and I had mentioned on NHL Network on Saturday. Boston played Tampa, and the NHL Network announcers, which I don't think broadcast into Canada, but they said, wow, this is going to be a great second round series, meaning they don't think Toronto is going to beat Tampa. So I said this to Greg Wyshynski, and he says, oh, everybody's knows not to give Toronto bulletin board material. And then he said in the next breath, but no, yeah, everybody thinks Toronto's going to lose to them. Right. Yeah, you've got to fight back from that assumption, and Toronto has got to stick it in their face.
Right.
They have to play with passion. They have to play with physicality when they have the opportunity to. They have to be faster to the puck. They have to do all the right things to beat a team that has made it to 3 Stanley Cup finals in a row. Can they do it? Yes. Will they do it? I'm a pessimist. So until I see it, I won't friggin' believe it.
It is amazing how, I'll get these long-winded emails from former OGs or new, new converts, old, former converts who don't we're still surprised that you and I look at things through a little bit more of a critical lens compared to everybody else, right? And the thing is, Mike, and look, my wife will tell you that I leave a lot to be desired, kind of like the Leafs. But we've been right most of the time on this show going back 5 years. And then beyond that, like we haven't been wrong on much.
No.
Really, like what have we been wrong on? It's not that we're soothsayers or savants or we just know the game better than everybody else, but we've been down these roads before and we really haven't, we haven't emphatically said this was the year for the Leafs and they've blown chunks, or we haven't come out and said, the Leafs are going to get they're going to get the shit kicked out of them and they all of a sudden conquer. So, the pessimistic point of view is relative, and it's necessary until the team that we've been following that has let us down on so many occasions does something to surprise us and get through. I do still believe, Mike, a lot of Leaf fans, like last year too, are banking on regression from the opposition, right? The Leafs have made adjustments, and we can argue that what the Leafs have done, Kyle Dubas at kind of at the precipice and making all the decisions, and certainly punctuating them, have done more over the last month and a bit than ever before. So positioning the team better and with more strength than in years past. But to think that that's the only reason why is foolhardy. You're going to rely on the opposition to not be able to handle the load that the Leafs are bringing to them. It's not so much that it's Tampa's time to fall apart and dismantle and rebuild. The Leafs have to be able to get there. And with all of the alterations and the amendments and, Austin Matthews, who he is, Nylander's best year, Mitch Marner, we still collectively aren't seeing a Leafs team that's basically standing at the gate and saying, we're going to take any fucking team that comes at us. We're going straight to the semifinals. We haven't seen that yet. Maybe it happens when the puck drops on game one, but we haven't seen that yet. Hence the pessimism, Mike.
Well, and it can't be understated that this team is better.
Right.
This team is a lot better.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll just go through it quickly. Michael Bunting was injured during the series with Tampa. He was not 100%. Pierre Engvall is gone. Ilya Mikheyev, Andre Kasha. When these are players that played in Game 7. Jason Spezza. So, you have a bunch of players, Spezza retired after that. Kasha has played 2 games before he was concussed again. There are significant upgrades to this roster and players who have won, like O'Reilly and Shen, who's won 2 Stanley Cups. So you look at the roster from last year in the playoffs. Colin Blackwell was on the 4th line. And most importantly, like Adam in the chat said, Jack Campbell in goal with Eric Shalgren as the backup. So Campbell had to play every minute because they didn't want to go with a relative novice in the playoffs against the best goalie in the NHL. And they got to 7 games and they lost 2-1. So you, as an optimist member of Leafs Nation, you're saying, okay, we're so much better. And Tampa got worse. They don't have McDonough anymore. They don't, this guy, they had a lot to free agency. Okay, they still have Kucherov. They still have Edmund. They still have Stamkos. They still have Vasilevsky. They still have Braden Point and Sorrell. There's enough there to beat this team. Do not underestimate them because you will be in handshake alley if you do.
Looks like I'm about to win the bidding on a pair of Jordan 3 retros. You don't want to know how much they're going to cost. But that's good news. That's good news. This is the Convo Norm along with Mike. Make sure to like this content, subscribe to the channel. We did miss a week, technically ending our streak, but we're back with a vengeance a day after the weekends. And in all likelihood, we'll be back on Sunday. And then we'll be doing several bits of content leading into the playoffs. And then for as long as the Maple Leafs are participants in the Stanley Cup playoffs, we will be doing content 2-3 times a week. So if you're new to the program, new to what we do, and you like us, you don't think we're negative Nancy's or just not the right kind of guys, then stick around, subscribe to the channel, get your indications, your notifications, and we'll go from there. We've been shitting on Tampa just based on what we've seen, right? Oh, the Leafs are better prepared. The Tampa doesn't look that great. Well, what are the Leafs? Like, what's so great about what we've seen from the Leafs, right? It's can't get on any kind of run, don't necessarily dominate. There's no real physical, overtaking of any kind of game. There's no pushback. What the hell is it about the Maple Leafs that it lends to this notion that now is the time? I'm not saying it isn't, but if we're we're picking on Tampa and saying, hey, they just don't look that good. And I've said, look, the facts are the facts. They don't look that great. Maybe this builds the Leafs' confidence a little bit. Clearly, a precedent has been set. The history is there. The pedigree is there. But what is it about the Leafs that tells you, you know what? The up and down stuff that's going on, it's fine. And we know it's going to be good. And then we look at Boston and say, they're blowing their load in the regular season. They're a regular season team. Wait till the playoffs get. So again, it's not so much. We're not really the foundation of our belief is not rooted in facts. It's just rooted in tribalism that our team is finally going to do it, and that's okay. And Mike, you and I love the Leafs more than any other hockey team, right? If I can just make you a Blue Jays fan, we'd be great. But at the end of the day, what is I know, Mike, I know you like the Yankees more than the Leafs. But like at the end of the day, what is it about the Leafs that says this is the year compared to what we're seeing from Tampa that tells us it's not their year? And then when we look at Boston and say that it's all smoke and mirrors.
Again, by the way, I think somebody in the chat just donated $13.99. But okay, just to go through an exercise here. Since the trade deadline, since March the 3rd, here is the Leafs record. Loss, win, loss, shootout loss, win, shootout win, loss, win, loss, win. It's like a teeter-totter. That's what it is. Now, okay, like I said, and this is maybe a valid excuse. They have nothing to play for. They really don't. Now, like you said, they're 7 points up on Tampa with a game in hand with 2.5 weeks to go in the regular season. And the only thing that I think a lot of these teams are worried about, not just the Leafs, but any contender, is their players getting hurt. Because O'Reilly got hurt with 5 weeks up to go in the regular season. And the rumor is that he may be back as early as this Wednesday. I would assume that maybe it happens on the weekend, but he's coming back after 3.5 to 4 weeks. There was enough time for him to heal up and, with the broken finger. But anybody gets hurt now, they're probably, unless it's a minor injury, they're missing the first round. So all these teams are scared crapless of players getting hurt. Right. And that's why, like, for example, the second last game of the regular season is in Tampa against the Lightning. If the Leafs are more than 4 points out, they should sit Matthews and Marner and Riley and call up Kyle Clifford and Wayne Simmons and play them against Tampa, because Maroon and Perry and the knuckle dragging Neanderthals on the Lightning are going to go after the Leafs, because it's that's what you do in a warm-up game. You're going to inflict some pain. So, be cognizant of that fact.
Yeah, I just don't think the Leafs can leave it to Tampa imploding, right? And I don't want to get into game 3 and the Leafs down, 2 games and just not looking into it and saying, I hate to say a toe so, I fucking a toe so, to use to paraphrase Ricky from Trailer Park Boys, right? On the flip side, maybe the puck drops on game 1 and this is a new team, because it'll have to be, Mike. You cannot tell me what we're seeing status quo from this group is just gonna get the job done. When's the last time the team put 4 wins together and did it with vim and vigor and passion? Straight wins, just blowing teams out, right? I mean, that's the thing. Master Queef, I don't recognize the name. One, he wants to buy an F-250 from me. What do you want, a pre-owned one? I just got a pre-owned one, and it's probably worth more now than it was brand new. Good luck, but we can talk. Appreciate the contribution. He also wants to know, Mike, are the Leafs going to go 12-6 or 11-7? And then he also brought up a bit about, is Murray and Samsonov, is that tandem that'll be passing the cup to one another, mid-June, right? When you have when you have Vasilevsky, who's tried, tested, and true, Allmark is going to be the next guy that the team has to face if they get that far.
Yeah, no, they can't. They can't look past Tampa. They never can look past Tampa. I'll just say this. I think based on what happened against Nashville, and we know that it was a second of back-to-back, they went with what I think, unfortunately, will be their starting six in the playoffs. I think they'll go 12-6.
Right.
And their starting six on the blue line were Riley, Brody, McCabe, Shen, Giordano, and Hall. And Hall, my favorite kicking dummy, in the game yesterday, pinches down with 10 minutes left to go in the third period, up 2-0, forcing Tavares to take a penalty when he covered the point. And that led to a power play, and that led to Nashville's first goal. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't have Justin Hall in the building, let alone in the press box for game one. But I think it's going to be him over Liljegren in the lineup. But I don't think they're going to play Eric Gustafsson in the playoffs unless Morgan Riley's hurt. He's there purely for insurance. Shen has to be in the lineup because the whole reason you got him is to counteract what Tampa does, and he can do it. He had 7 hits against the Predators yesterday. He is a monster back there, and he's a hitting machine. So he had 7 hits in 12 minutes, a little like 12 or 13 minutes of ice time. So you need him in your lineup, but
and that's why why else would you get him?
Well, yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. It's like they're not the move that should be made is Liljegren over Hall. He's more mobile. He gives up the puck less, but we know that Sheldon Keefe loves Justin Hall. He's a penalty killer. He's big. Yesterday, I think he threw his first check of the season. He laid out somebody. He's a guy who's 6'4" or 6'5" and really doesn't hit and really isn't good positionally. But we know that that's the way it's going to go down. Now, the interesting thing is like who the 12 forwards will be. The news from the NCAA tournament yesterday or this weekend sort of answers that question because Matthew Nyes will be in Minnesota, are going to the Frozen Four.
Can we just forget him for this year?
No, because he's going to be a factor. But the thing is,
how is he going to be a factor?
Well, I mean, okay, I'm just saying this. The Frozen Four is April 6th and April 8th if Minnesota wins and goes to the finals. The Leafs will have 3 games left in the regular season. Now, the point that I'm making is he's gonna sign and he'll probably play in a couple of those games.
Okay,
it's not enough time for him to be fully ingratiated. So he's going to be probably a black ace, or essentially. He could be the first guy in the lineup. If
you think he's just ready, like he's built different, as they say.
No, I don't know if he's ready, but they might believe that he's. Do you think he contributes more than Wayne Simmons? Because right now Wayne Simmons.
Why stop punching down, Mike?
No, but I'm just telling you that right now their extra forward when O'Reilly comes back, the 13th forward is Wayne Simmons.
Right.
So does Matthew Nyes contribute more than Wayne Simmons? I think he does. But the fact that he is a raw rookie coming out of the NCAA, I mean, it would be the same as they played Nick Robertson a few years ago in the bubble. He was a raw kid. He was 19 or 20 years old. I think he was 19 years old.
Why are you bringing up Tyler Bozak? Is he the best NCAA signing the Leafs have made?
I said he could be the best undrafted college free agent in recent years because I mean, going back, like Adam Oates was an undrafted free agent, but I'm talking about in the modern era, Tyler Bozak, he was a number 1 center. He wasn't a number 1 center really, but he was number 1 center for the Leafs. Won a Stanley Cup with St. Louis. He was a great success. Matthew Nyes is not an undrafted college prospect. He was a 2nd-round pick. He could win the Hobie Baker. So I'm saying he could be a factor.
But his route is similar in that he'd be, I guess you're right. He was signed, right? He's not an undrafted. Okay.
Yeah, he will be signed. He was drafted. But,
gotcha.
But the whole point here is they're not depending on Matthew Nyes to come in and be the savior, but they hope that he can come in, late in the season. And if they need a spark or if they need somebody to step in for an injured player, they're hoping he can.
Let me throw this out here. Adam Bailey. Don't recognize the name, but I've seen it lately. Wouldn't say he is an instigator or anything like that, but a little bit more positive. But Adam, welcome to the content. We appreciate you being here. Is beating Tampa enough to shut up all the haters at least? So, Mike, again, there's more to what the Leafs need to accomplish than winning one series. But this group has never won one series.
Right.
Is beating Tampa enough to shut up the haters, indicate that the Leafs have this group has more of a run in it, even if it falls to Boston in the next series, and retain employment for guys like Keith and Dubas? Let's wrap up after this one.
Okay.
With the Leafs.
Let's just say this. The last time the Maple Leafs won a playoff series, I had hair. So
Michael.
Okay.
Yellow.
Now, I think if they beat Tampa, it is enough to get Dubas a contract extension, and by extension, that Keefe will be the coach next year. He's already got. I think Keefe has another year on his contract, so they don't have to sign him to an extension. But we know that Dubas and Keefe are sort of attached at the hip. If they lose, then I think both of them are gone. So I think that that maintains. I mean, the domino effect of them beating Tampa is Dubas, Kiefer back, Michael Bunting gets signed to a long-term extension. Maybe the Leafs re-sign Ryan O'Reilly. They'll probably announce a Matthews signing in July. If they don't, the whole domino effect, the whole series of events. If they don't win, then everything is in question.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Because the new general manager might actually trade William Nylander because they know that this core needs to be shaken up. But who knows? But then you don't know whether Matthews wants to. The whole thing about I think Matthews wants to stay in Toronto, but I think it would be easier for them to re-sign Matthews if Dubas is still the general manager. Not that he has veto power or anything like that, but I think it's enough to tamp down the criticism throughout the league. It's like, I mean, they're not yelling 1940 like they did for the Rangers or 1967, although I've heard some idiots in Montreal do that. But, if they just win a series, it sort of gets the monkey off of their back. It's the first series win in 19 years. You harken back to 2013 and 4-1 in game 7 and being up 3-1 against Montreal. All that is wiped away if they win one series.
Right.
Now, that's not, you're not winning the Stanley Cup if you win one series. Even back to the original 6, you needed to win 2 series to win the Stanley Cup. But it would really take the heat off the organization and off this particular group of players to have some playoff success. And can they do it? I'm anxious to watch.
But Mike, just looking at the standings in the NHL right now, okay, and going through, look, the top 10 in the league: Boston, Carolina, New Jersey, Vegas, Leafs, Rangers, LA, Minnesota, Colorado, Dallas. I mean, then there's Edmonton, 11th. Tampa's 12th. Like, we're talking about how Tampa's the de facto favorite in this series, with the Leafs being in the top 5. You can't tell me that the Leafs, when push comes to shove, are just like they are a substantial amount better than most of these teams, and then if they just play their game, they're going to win. That's the thing. There are a lot of good teams going into the playoffs. Teams like the Leafs, teams maybe on paper not as good, maybe on paper just a little bit better, but struggling with their own demons. That's the thing, Mike. That's the thing. This team is awesome, and shit could be way worse, right? We should be very thankful that this Leafs team right now, our issue is getting past the first round compared to a lot of other things. And Mike, you and I have been there. Sorry, and I'll be done. But somebody proved to me that, hey man, this team is a good bounce away from going on a crazy run and winning a title.
When we were doing the hook,
right?
And we were talking about them trading 2 first-round picks for Kessel and the failures that they had in 2008 and 2009 and 2010, and then Burke getting fired, all this stuff. Okay, would you have said, I'll sign up for this team having 115 points in the regular season? Of course you would. But The regular season is Mars.
Right.
Playoffs are Venus. And you have to be able to succeed on Venus. You
Mhm.
have to be able to survive that. And right now, in 6 straight years, Washington, Boston,
Right.
Columbus, Montreal, Tampa, 0 for 6.
Right.
Said, prove it to me.
Yeah. So if the Leafs were plus 118, okay, so if the Leafs were plus 118, 57, 11, and 5, Leaf fans, you'd have every right to say we're going all the way this year. But how many Leaf fans in the chat right now, like Will85, comments are more interesting than you guys. Sorry, but it's the truth. Okay, Will, then fucking don't watch, okay? But how many people here, Leaf fans here, and all the Leaf fans you deal with in Twitter Spaces think in their heart the Leafs are better than Boston?
Better
Right?
than Boston? No,
No, they guaranteed
not a one.
they do, Mike. And it's somehow that William Nylander, because he's had a great season. Like, again, you have to have more than just the ability to score goals here and there. The thing that bothers me about this team is it just has no pushback and there's no physicality. There's no emotion, right? And again, you can get your way to a 100-point season in the during the first 82. But if you just go in and you play without any kind of reckless abandon, any kind of urgency, any kind of, reason to just exist as a hockey player, and all of those early morning practices, all of they've culminated with this opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. If you don't feel that, and it's just go out there, play your 12-6, play your 11-7, and just jump over the boards and try to do your thing, it's not enough. It hasn't been enough in the past, and it's not going to be enough against Tampa. And if they can somehow get by Tampa because it's Tampa's time to disintegrate, it certainly won't be enough against the Boston team that has 119 points now and plays a playoff style game every time it hits the fucking ice. Last word to you again, Mike. I got to get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, we can argue about this for the next couple weeks before we get to the playoffs. But like 09 Max in the chat, they got Achari, they got Shen. Those guys push back. O'Reilly is a playoff performer. Again, the Leafs, to be successful.
The top 4 guys are going to play.
Thank you. Exactly.
Come on, Max. You know that.
But for the Leafs to be successful in the postseason, and okay, we're not asking William Nylander to emulate Wendell Clark and beat the crap out of Bob Probert. We just need William Nylander and Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and Morgan Riley and John Tavares to show up. And if they do, and they get a save that they didn't get last year from Jack Campbell, then they win the first round. And then who knows? Then everything else is gravy. We'd love to think that they can beat Boston. Boston right now is just a juggernaut. I don't see anybody beating them. I think they're the favorite for the cup, but anything is possible. But just get past that first step, because once you break that seal, then there you go. Everything.
Boston set itself apart. Excuse me, with its road record, right? I mean, 27 wins on the road, 27-2 total. 30 wins at home. The Leafs had 25 wins at home. So again, look, the Leafs acquired what the team needed. And remember, there was a time when the much of the fan base who supported the guy at the top didn't think the team needed any kind of physicality, any kind of pushback. They acquired it, but you can't have Noel Achari and Jake McCabe and Sam Lafferty fighting your fucking battles. If you're Mitch Marner, Austin Matt, you can't smile while you have your $10,000 chain ripped off. You got to play that playoff series like it might be your last one. I mean, that's why the teams that win have characters and guys who play that way. And guess what? They get through it and they succeed, and they do it again the next year. This is a major, major moment for the Marners, Nylanders, Tavares, and these guys. Again, the complimentary dudes were there, but they're not the guys who have to pull the weight. It's the top 4 dudes. Really, this really is an indictment against them, or this is a vindication for them. Mike, we got to go. OG's Converse, thanks so much for being here. This was a surprise show, and it's nice that you guys are spending your time with us on a Monday night when you could be doing all kinds of other things. I wanted to mention that Craig McIntyre is a viewer of the podcast, the consumer of the product. he was looking for an explorer, and he reached out to us, and I was able to interact with him. And Craig McIntyre, I don't know if you're watching or listening, but you can attest, get it done at Oak Ridge Ford. If you're looking for any vehicle and you're not against American products, you want to get into a Ford, you'd be crazy to talk to any, I don't care where you are, as long as you're in Canada, but you'd be crazy to talk to anybody else and buy a Ford anywhere else besides with me. And it's not because I'm trying to make a whole ton of money on you. We do what we have to do to take care of our clients, our customers, referrals. And if you come from the podcast, my general manager is going to pull out, sharpen that pen and get it done for you. It's just the truth. Craig McIntyre can attest to that. Ron Smith recently picked up an Explorer from us, and he's a big supporter of the podcast. So if you're thinking of something, you got to reach out to me, the Leafs Convo at gmail.com. It helps me, it helps Mike, and it'll certainly, most importantly, help you. So 100%, it's a shameless plug, bud. You want to like contribute to the show financially? Probably not. But at the end of the day, we appreciate you. Like the content, subscribe to the channel. The upload of the audio portion of this show will be up shortly. I leave it to my wife to get that done, and then we'll do it. But in the meantime, just let us know what's going on, and be prepared for the next collaboration. It'll most likely be before the end of the week, and for sure the Sunday Spectacular. Mike, anything else?
No, Wednesday against Florida, and then Saturday against Saturday in Ottawa against the Senators. A replay of the day after St. Patrick's Day, that exciting 5-4 shootout. So we'll have a lot to talk about.
But there's nothing wrong with playing energy-filled, emotion-packed, determined hockey.
Nope.
What is wrong with that? Imagine the Leafs just getting on the ice with their hair on fire every bloody time, right? Jeff Curry, thank you very much, bud. It's just one of those deals. Okay, for Mike, I'm Norm, and Adam Bailey, who say the Leafs are going to win that series in 5. I hope you're right, my friend. We'll talk to you soon. We're out.